What up, BookTube? Chelsea's Reads here. So, this has been an interesting week. I think we're on week 8. Unbelievable, right? That we have made it 8 weeks into this crazy journey of self-isolation and quarantine, and what a wild ride. I think every video I bitch about my glasses. I'm gonna bitch one more time that I absolutely hate having an angle on my face so I don't have a reflection in it. Maybe if I... Nope. See, it just doesn't work. Dumb. Anyway, week 8. Today wasn't a very good day. This week's been really rough, actually. I actually read a lot this week, though. Like, today, my biggest accomplishment was I took a shower. And then I had Grubhub deliver me some Cold Stone, because Grubhub was DoorDash. I DoorDashed some Cold Stone, because I needed ice cream to feel better today. It's May the 8th of 2020, and it is snowing. Like, what's more depressing than not being able to do stuff? Snow. I do miss going to work. Miss my kids. I don't like this new regime and this new standards for online teaching, especially with my students are tier 4 autism. So it's been tough. But depressing stuff aside, let's get into some books. I did get some new books today. I'm part of a Pay It Forward group, and on that Pay It Forward group, you post your Amazon wish list, and people can buy stuff off of it for you, and you, of course, gift other people. So, of course, I have a ton of books on there, and I think, 3 people have bought me books off of it, only because I, obsessively keep checking my list to see, what's missing. 2 of them have come in, but I, already have them on the shelf, and I didn't feel like grabbing them before I recorded this, so we'll showcase them next week. Maybe I'll have more. Hopefully I'll have more books. Because, books, yeah. Yep, books. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump into what I read this week. So this week, the first book that I read was actually a manga, and I did read it on e-reader because it's free on Kindle Unlimited right now, and that was Volume 1 of Mars. I don't know how to showcase this, whatever. There we go. Mars, Volume 1. And it is by Fuyumi Soryo, or however you pronounce that. So Mars, in this first volume, we meet the bad boy Ray. He likes to race, he rides a motorcycle, he's really edgy, he's got his little fan club. And Ray's, depressed. He definitely mentions dying and not being afraid to die. And he's just a sad boy. And then he meets this girl, Kira, and she's shy, doesn't talk to anybody. People generally don't like her because of that. And she draws him this map to get to the hospital where a friend of his, I believe it's a friend, might be a family member, is in the hospital after an accident. So Kira draws him a map to get there, and on the other side of this map is actually this beautiful painting of a baby and a mother. And he loves it so much he decides to keep it. And then that's what prompts him to talk to her in school. I think he was held back a year, which is why they're in the same class this year. So they sort of become friends. And, of course, it's good girl, bad boy, and she develops a crush on him, and he tries to persuade her away from him. It's that typical trope, you're too good for me, I'm not good enough for you kind of a thing. And, yeah, that's it, really, and then Kara gets bullied by his little fan club. And it gets really serious, actually, when these girls try to, burn her with a cigarette, and then they threaten to break her hand so she can never draw again. But he decides that she is under his protection now, and no one's going to hurt him. He actually does try to hook her up with a friend of his, who has had a crush on her for a long time, but it doesn't work out because she admits that she has feelings for Ray. And that was basically Volume 1. It is published by Tokyo Pop, and I'm used to Tokyo Pop having more of a bubblegummy kind of manga, mainly because I think they ended up partnering with Disney for a while and was publishing cinemanga of their stuff. I used to really like manga, especially in the middle school era. I read Chobits and a bunch of others, and I somehow missed this title, and I know it's a really popular one, and right now it's all free on Kindle Unlimited, so I downloaded quite a few of them, and I'm going to dive more into it because I know it got pretty decent reviews, and it just sounds like it's going to be a good time. I did give it 4 stars because, like I said, the story, it was just kind of starting off, and it seems pretty typical, like nothing very unique about it right now. Bad boy, good girl, with some bullies who are, like, just don't think she's good enough for him kind of a thing, and they feel like they would be better options for him. And like I said, it got really good reviews, and it's kind of a trope I do like. The artwork is gorgeous as well, and it's intriguing, so I'm definitely going to continue it. The next book I read this week was the series Unfortunate Events, Book 1, The Bad Beginning, by Lemony Snicket. I actually listened to the audiobook version because that was what was available on Libby. I do own this entire series, and I have read it before. However, my collection of it is at a friend's house, and she's currently pregnant, so we didn't want to risk anything with that. With her having to have to drop it off or anything. We don't want any kind of cross-contamination, so I went onto Libby because I wanted to reread this, and the audiobook was available. It's narrated by Tim Curry, which was phenomenal, but it does have a full cast, and it really worked. Like, I love The Bad Beginning. It's about 3 siblings. Violet is the oldest. She is an inventor. There's Klaus. He is a reader. And then the baby, Sunny, is a biter. And they are told, like, in the very first couple of pages by a banker friend of their families, that their parents have died in a mysterious fire. And they have to go to their next living relative, which is a count who is in a theater troupe. And his name's Count Olaf. He's really gross and sinister looking, and he has a tattoo of an eye on his ankle. Now, they quickly learn that Count Olaf isn't a good guy. He, like, slaps one of Klaus, and then he makes them sleep on one bed, and they have these grueling chores, and he makes them cook him dinner. And that sounds, like, ridiculous when I say it out loud, but like, that's the same reaction they got when I told the banker, like, but he's just not good. Like I said, he hit them, he doesn't talk to them, he just calls them orphans, and then he wants their fortune. So he decides he's going to marry Violet and then kill her siblings. And it was really creepy and uncomfortable, especially when it's Tim Curry's voice, like, narrating this stuff, when he's, like, caressing Violet's cheek and touching her hair, and I'm like, ugh. This series is marketed for children, but upon listening to it this time around, it's not really child friendly. I don't feel like it is dark. Multiple times throughout the book, the narrator of the story tells you that this is not going to have a happy ending. This isn't a happy book. Don't read it. The series spans 13 books. I mean, I don't know why I'm explaining it. Like, I feel like everybody's probably read A Series of Unfortunate Events at this point, and if you haven't, you should definitely reread it. I really liked it. It's very short. The audiobook was only 2.5 hours long, so I listened to it while I was doing laundry and got through it, and like I said, the audiobook was, like, spectacular. I really could not recommend it more. Especially if you haven't, like, revisited the series in a while, I think an audiobook would be the best way to get through it. I'm sorry, guys, I, like, really need a haircut, and it's, like, distracting me right now. Sorry. The next book that I got through was The Trial by James Patterson and Maxine Petro. The Trial is a women's murder club book, but is part of James Patterson's Bookshot line. Bookshots was what James Patterson came up with. They're, like, novella-sized stories. He's had 2 Alex Cross ones and 2 in the Women's Murder Club series. They're very short. They're only $5 to pick up, and they're supposed to be quick, reads. This, like I said in my last video about 15th Affair, this book is supposed to come right after it, and it does deal with, like, her and Joe aren't together in this one. Like, they're still broken up. And so it follows in that way, but 15th Affair started off with a trial, and this being called The Trial, I thought maybe I read it out of order. I didn't. This is actually the mafia boss, Kingpin. Is it Kingpin? It's Kingfisher. Kingpin's from comics. Kingfisher was a long-standing villain from this series, and they do finally capture him, and he does go to trial. However, jury members have been shot and killed before the trial can start, so it keeps getting delayed. I'm getting it mixed up, I think, with 15th Affair as well, because 15th Affair had a bunch of bodies go missing. But these being so short, they're supposed to be short, concise, and focused. which is what makes a good novella. If you're going to do a novella, there's no room for fluff. It wasn't good. Like, there's a time skip in this. Like, it says 4 months later, and you can't do a 4 months later when you're having your main couple being broken up and then they have a baby daughter. Like, 4 months is a lot. And your baby can't just not age in 4 months where you can get away with that in a regular narrative. And I don't know, it was boring. I think I gave it only 2 stars. Maybe like 1.5, really. If you're a fan of Women's Murder Club, definitely pick it up. If you're like me and you're kind of like on the fence and not really loving it, like, you can probably skip this. I don't think anything significant happened, unless they're going to tie in like the ending to like the next book. Like, the ending was like they thought they like got him, but then really you find out somebody else was in on it. But they kind of did that at the end of 15th Affair anyway, so it was really disappointing to see that same kind of like pull the rug out from under you trope in the book that followed it. Yeah, it didn't work. Like, Joe and Lindsay hug, and I believe they even kiss in this, so I don't know if that means that they made up, especially after how serious it was dealt with in the actual full novel. And then for him to just, like, kind of like, it's not even him who's writing it, I really believe it's Maxine Pedro that's taken over this series, and they continue just to slap James Patterson's name on it. But I just don't feel like I think there was too much time devoted to how hurt Lindsay was to just throw a Band-Aid over their relationship when Joe really didn't do too much in this one. Like, unfortunately, I'm getting it mixed up at this point with 15th Affair. Because that's how forgettable this was, and it's not even that long. So you can read it really quick, which is the point of book shots, and they're supposed to be affordable and quick. But this one just didn't work. The next book I read this week was And the Wicked Will Rise, or not And, it's just The Wicked Will Rise by Danielle Page. This is the second book in the Dorothy Must Die series. Dorothy Must Die is about a girl from Kansas named Amy Gum, who gets brought to the land of Oz on a tornado, except for her mission is to take down and kill Dorothy. And to do that, she needs to take the Scarecrow's brain, take the Tin Man's heart, and take the Lion's courage. To do that, she bands together with the Order of the Wicked, who are the witches that you're familiar with from Oz. Not the Wicked Witch of the West, because obviously she dies in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. But, like, Mombi is in there, who I believe is from, like, Return from Oz. Polychrome is in here. And I'm forgetting the big one. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't quite remember it. So in this one, it takes off right where the first book left off. It has been a while since I've read book 1, because after reading book 1, I decided to read all 9 of the prequels before picking up book 2. I am kind of glad I did, because there was a lot in here, like, about Polychrome and the rainbow and stuff that I don't think would have been as impactful without reading the prequels first before getting into this one, but because I waited so long from the first one, I really didn't remember where we left off. But she's taken to the land of the wingless monkeys, the monkeys who chose to cut their wings off so they would be out of servitude, and she meets Queen Lulu there, and tries to get the monkeys on their side. She finds out Queen Lulu actually helped raise the Ozma, and when she was a baby, and she starts to learn this story about Ozma and how she came to be. She also discovers that Ozma and Pete are the same person, that while trying to disguise Ozma, Pete was born. Instead of just, like, disguising her as a boy, they created another life in Pete, and that becomes a plot line that is exposed in here, is that Pete doesn't want to die, and in order for Ozma to fully be herself and to come back, Pete's probably gonna have to die. So Pete freaks out, becomes a traitor, because he goes to Glinda. Glinda's really not a good person in this. There was some battle, and it ends with them actually going back to Kansas. I gave this book 3 stars, because I wasn't really invested in it. It felt like, originally this series was supposed to be a trilogy, with the book after this, The Elbrick War, being the last one, but they have since turned it into a quartet. And this felt like a middle book, like a lot of setup, a lot of, like, all right, you know, like, I could see it becoming, like, a bigger thing to conclude in the next book, but now that it's a quartet, this doesn't work anymore. Like, there's not enough payoff for this to be a second book in a longer series. So some major characters die. it is very bloody, but after reading the prequels that were so well written, this book didn't really compare to the prequels, and the prequels were all novellas. And this one's not super long, but it felt padded, and like there was too much stuff in there that didn't need to be in there. Like, let's just get the point already. It also had a Return of the King style like end where you like there was too many endings. It was like just pick one and finish it already. So it was okay. I'm really hoping the next two books kind of pick up and go back to like, because the prequels were really good, and I'm really kind of hoping that they find that same vein of like that Tim Burton style horror gore at like aspect. Like Amy was really bland in this one, and maybe that was the issue, because in the prequels you got really fun characters, like even Evil Dorothy narrated one of them, and being inside her brain was just much more fun, entertaining than Amy, who was really boring. It was definitely a find yourself, define yourself kind of a book, which was fine, except for she had to find herself like 3 different times in 3 different tasks. The romance with Knox I can do without. It feels very one-sided and very forced at this point, like you're going to war and you're in a land where you're not familiar with. I don't know. So I'm really, like I said, hoping that this series picks back up, because the first book I remember really enjoying. The prequels were all really good, so I'm really hoping that this gets better. The next book that I finished this week was Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith. For those of you who don't know, Robert Galbraith is actually the pen name for J.K. Rowling. This is the 3rd book in the Cormoran Strike series. The first 2 books I found a little bit overwhelming. Or not overwhelming, underwhelming. They were pretty boring, actually. Oh, the first one was like really boring. The second one was a little bit more interesting because it had like a fun villain. But ultimately, like, I just found the narratives to be lacking. I don't read too many detective novels outside of Alex Cross, so I was just chalking it up to maybe like my lack of information or lack of experience in the genre. But this book was like so good. I definitely gave it 4 stars. Cormoran is a detective. He is a war veteran and the son of a famous rock star. He does have a prosthetic leg, and his secretary is Robin. She is engaged to this douchebag named Matthew. And Robin wants to be more than just a secretary. She wants to be more of an assistant. So Cormoran has been taking her on different assignments and, you know, allowing her to help out. And it's been really cute and fun. So this one is Robin's wedding's looming up, and there's still this tension with her fiancé, because her fiancé gets jealous of Cormoran, even though Robin insists that there's no feelings between them. And that really like just took the spotlight for me, was their relationship and how that developed. There was also the plot line of them having to track down and solve this case about like pedophilia and child rapists, and it was really uncomfortable. Robin gets hurt again in this, and you know, Cormoran has to start to face up to some feelings that he is feeling for his secretary that are less than professional, or a little bit more than professional feelings. They actually get into a big fight because he just is upset that she won't listen to him, and she thinks like he's just trying to keep her out of the loop instead of trying to keep her safe. And I really enjoyed the progression of their relationship. Like, there is another book out right now in this series. There's a 4th book and a 5th book that is expected to be published later this year. And I'm actually looking forward to reading the continuation, because the end of this, I literally like typed in my Goodreads to be like, I need a support group for this book. It was really good though, and if you have read the first book and were underwhelmed like I was, I do encourage you to continue the series, because I do feel like it's getting better. I think J.K. Rowling's getting, or Robert Galbraith, is getting more comfortable in the genre themselves, and that it's really starting to show. This one, the pacing was quicker. There was more happening. The first 2 books I felt were like too much like of just people interviewing. This place, they're traveling more. They're doing more. There's a lot more going on in this, and it held my interest, and I actually got through it a lot quicker than I did the last couple books. So I do recommend this one. This was surprisingly better than I was expecting. The last book that I read this week was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. It is the 2nd book in the Red Queen series. This book I only gave 2 stars because I really didn't like it at all. The first book was okay. This one was just okay as well. Takes place in a dystopian world, which is also hard for me to grasp because I keep picturing it like, because they have a queen and such, I keep picturing like almost like a medieval setting, and it's not right. Once again, I read Red Queen maybe a little over a year ago, and I also read Throne of Glass around that time, and I think I was getting the two mixed up. When Mare kept referring to things that happened before, I don't remember which book I was thinking of when I was picturing what happened, so that made it a little bit confusing as well. But this book does take place in a dystopian world, but there are two classes of people, red bloods and silver bloods. Silver bloods are considered the superior race because they have special powers and can do cool things, and they're the ones with the royalty. Red bloods are your lower class, poor people. Mare does have red blood, but she does also have abilities to the point that they refer to her as the Lightning Girl. She was engaged to one of the princes who murdered his father and became king. Now they have the other prince, Prince Cal, who was the general in the army and the rightful king of the Silver Throne. They have them in their captivity. She has joined the rebellion led by Farley and her brother Shade. And they're going to track down some new bloods and try to make an army to raise against Maven, who is the evil king. And that was basically this whole book, was just them trekking around from land to land, avoiding armies and finding people to try to join them. The ending was pretty cool and left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but much like Rogue One, you cannot have it doesn't make it for a good story if you only have one good scene and it's at the end. There was a quote in here about Mare, like, compared herself to being a fish just going from hook to hook, and that is a very accurate description of this book and of Mare. She waits for other people to make decisions for her and to make plans, and she follows along. She has all these really cool special powers, but she doesn't know how to use them. And what I mean by that is like make decisions and use your power for the good. Don't wait for people to tell you to do things. She's very much a soldier, not a general. And that's disappointing. So is it an exception that like the Red Queen series was like really popular, but the more that like reviews that I read, the more I'm finding that like a lot of people read it, but I don't think a lot of people liked it. This is a signed edition as well, in a Barnes & Noble collector's edition, but it's not very good, and I'm probably going to end up donating it. Right now, I do have the last two books in this series, and I'm probably going to hang on to them until I have other books to fill the space on the shelf, because it's a big chunk of shelf that would be empty without these. But I will continue, rather reluctantly, continue the series, because I'm just not feeling it at all. And based on reviews, it just remains an underwhelming series to the end. So I will, like I said, keep reading it, but I don't recommend this book at all. It wasn't very good. And that was it for me this week. I just started Let the Right One In, and I don't know if that might end up being did not finish. Just warning people now. Other than that, I got like some erotica up next, some more V.C. Andrews, and a reread of a vampire book. And that's what's on my queue right now. So guys, we're like 8 weeks in. Let's do this, right? I hope you guys are doing well though. So if you watched this, please like, comment, subscribe, and let's share some book recs. Bye guys, see you next week.